All right, so this is my 180-day or 6-month update in my progress in French. And I'd like to talk a little bit about what I've been doing this month, and as you can see from what I've been studying. But before we talk about Le Petit Prince, let's talk about my stats, as I always do. So I have to say that, so right now, from the month, I have 93.57% retention for all mature cards, so across several months. And this is a tricky thing because, for one, it's a little disappointing to see it start to creep a little bit lower every month, like 0.5% here or 0.25% down. There's a reason why it's going down, I think, but I'll talk about that in just a second. Now, I shouldn't actually feel disappointed because the Anki algorithm is designed for you to remember things 90% of the time, mature cards. So the fact anytime it's above 90% is actually a win, especially when you've been doing it for a while. So over 6 months, you should expect to only remember 90% of the things. So I shouldn't feel disappointed by that statistic. Now, in terms of how many cards I know, well, I have 5,877 total cards, which is a lot, and my total notes is 3,390. Now, previously I've been using that as a proxy for the amount of words I know, but I think that's actually a little bit inflated at this point because I realized that if I learned exactly 15 words every single day, which is if I were learned 30 cards, that's how much I'd be learning. I would be at 2,700 words today. But of course, a lot of my cards, in fact, roughly 800 of my cards, are not actual new words, but they're reinforcing things like grammatical gender or other grammar concepts. So really, I have to subtract 800 from this number. So that would bring it down to about 2,600. And even that might be just slightly inflated. So if I'm actually being accurate, my actual overall amount of words I know after 6 months is somewhere around 2,500 to 2,600. So definitely under. So definitely under. Uh, Maybe closer. Yeah, somewhere between 24 and 2,500, I would say actually. And then part of the problem is a lot of those are new conjugations. So in a way, I'm learning lots of new grammar concepts with these so-called new words, but a lot of them are the same old classic être, avoir, all those words that we use all the time. But there's always new grammar concepts and new conjugations that I'm learning with them. Passé simple, plus parfait, passé composé, l'imparfait, etc. So I take those as all new words. But to be honest, though, I feel like I would only subtract maybe 100 words from the total as well if I was including all those conjugations because I don't actually have that many repeated verbs conjugated. Often there's so much repetition when it comes to which the conjugation of the classic really common words. So if I was being brutally honest, I think, and being uncharitable to myself, I would say about 2,400 words is how many words I learned. Now that's only within Anki. Now the thing is, I probably know hundreds, if not more than that, words purely passively or are just not an Anki that I learned, and I know this is definitely true, but that's not an Anki that I read or watched TV or listened to a podcast and know. There's so many times I'll make a flashcard, I'll be like, oh, I know that word, and then I'll just double check, do I have a flashcard for that? And I realize I actually don't, and it's surprising because I know that word really well. And sometimes I'll make a flashcard, sometimes I won't. Like for example, La Planète. I never made a flashcard, and then I realized today that oh, I never actually made a flashcard for La Planète, and I probably didn't need to because I know that word fairly well, but it doesn't hurt to reinforce it to make it a little more permanent, make more a little more in my active memory. But so yeah, so do I only know 2,400 words like period in terms of either passive or active? No, but it's impossible to judge exactly how many words I know. My 2,400 is what's in Anki, and that's what I know. And I and so, but the thing is, again, it's not just 2,400 words. Behind those words is pretty much every tense in French: present, passé composé, imparfait, plus parfait, passé simple, etc. Like all of them, and lots of like syntax and prepositions and all this stuff. So much grammar behind those 2,400 words. So it's not just rote memorization of these individual words, but there's so many concepts behind them. So I shouldn't feel bad about myself for only having about 2,400 words in Anki, but it is what it is. Like again, the maximum I could actually have is 2,700, so it's not that much less than that. And like I said, I've learned so much, and yeah, um, yeah. So not much else to say in terms of statistics. My average card time is really long still, 13 seconds. There's not much I can do about it. I missed 1 day in 6 months because of a family emergency, but other than that, and 1 day after that where I didn't learn anything but just caught up on my reviews. But every day for the other 6 days of the 6 months, uh, I learned my normal 30 cards and did my reviews. And then in terms of my year count, uh, 95.58%, which is great. Again, that's 5% higher than what Anki says I should be able to get. So now, again, that's going to trend down slowly and slowly more as the months progress. But as long as I'm above 90%, I think things are going fine. Um, yeah, I mean, review time's going up. Total time for 6 months is 136 hours, plus about 2 hours per week for card creation. I would say that's about right. So then that means that over how many weeks? 25 weeks is another 50 hours, 50, 60, let's say 50 to 60 hours. So if we round up, that's about 200 hours of studying, which is cool. That's a third of the way to the FSI ranking of the FSI calculation to get fluent. Now, there's also additional time that I'm doing reading and listening, so it's probably more than that. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 300. Maybe I'm about halfway there. I think that, you know what, if I was actually being honest, I think I've definitely spent 300 hours with the language if I'm, all things considered, not just Anki, but card creation, listening, reading, speaking. So, yeah, I would say I'm about 300 hours, which should put me close to around B1, not quite, but roughly. I haven't done a lot of writing practice, so I'm definitely not B1 there. But in terms of listening, absolutely. Reading, absolutely. Speaking, getting close, I think. I've only spoken for 3 hours total. But the last conversation I had over italki was great. It was purely in French for a whole hour. We talked about the weather and books and life and stuff. And I mean, it certainly wasn't fluent, but it was all in French, and it was, somewhat superficial conversation, I guess, but it was a conversation, and yeah, and that's more than I could have said 6 months ago, which is pretty cool. I don't think I care about I don't think I really want to record those sessions because I don't want to. I want it to be just about practicing production, being able to just produce words and stuff. I don't want to look back on it and review that kind of stuff. I have enough stuff to review when I read and do Anki and watch TV and listen to podcasts that I just want to use that opportunity to not feel self-inhibited and be able to produce the language. Okay? So I'm going to do now before I talk a little bit about my my shift in learning focus right now, um, I'm going to do a full review of the Fluent Forever method, maybe in a few days on YouTube as well as on Reddit, to talk about the benefits and the drawbacks of the method and the approach. Spoiler, I like the method, obviously, but I think there are some caveats and some issues and some changes that I made for my own personal study. But stay tuned for that. Last thing I'll talk about is my approach to vocabulary. So I think I'm not sure if I talked about it last time, but I finished the top 1,000 words in French from a frequency dictionary. So I've memorized the top 1,000 words in French, plus another 600 from Gabriel Weiner's list, plus a whole bunch of words that were connected to those sentences that each word represented. So I considered just learning the next 1,000, which I do intend to do at one point, but I decided to try something different. And what I'm doing now is I am sentence mining Le Petit Prince, which is a French classic novel, but only has 3,000 unique words, which is not actually that much, which means that odds are I probably know at least a half of them. Maybe actually, I estimated I probably know two or three-quarters of them. So, which means that I have to learn about 700 of them, 7 to 800 words from Le Petit Prince, which actually only takes about 2 months because I learn about 100 words a week. So that's very reasonable and manageable, and I'll have memorized all the good vocabulary. Now, how do I actually do it? So what I do, I'll show you kind of what I would do is, okay, so this is an example. J'ai montré mon chef-d'œuvre aux grandes personnes et je leur ai demandé si mon dessin leur faisait peur. So one of the problems with these, like a novel in general, is that this is a really long sentence, And part of my method is actually memorizing these sentences and be able to spit them back, at least over the short term, over a few weeks or months. But some of these sentences are quite long, and that one I actually, when I made the card, I split it into two. So this would be one sentence: J'ai montré mon chef d'œuvre aux grandes personnes, and that's not that hard of a sentence to memorize. It's just about long enough, just long enough. Like it couldn't be much longer, or it starts to get pretty tricky. And then I made another one for Je leur ai demandé si mon dessin leur faisait peur. And that one's a little tricky. Just it's not the vocabulary. I don't think I had a card for demander, and I'm not sure I had one for faisait either. But it's more the syntax. Je leur ai demandé. It's just kind of a pattern. Or si mon dessin leur faisait peur. It's just a pattern that I haven't really seen before. It makes sense to me, but it was just a little unfamiliar. And so what I would do is, like normal, I would just take the whole sentence, put it into Anki, and then for every word I don't know, I'd make two flashcards. One represent, I'd have to do the fill in the blank, and of course the other one where I'd have to provide the whole sentence. But where I've got into trouble is I'll have like a super long sentence like this one. Here. No. Where's a really long one that I memorized? Here. So I memorized this whole thing. Les grandes personnes m'ont conseillé de laisser de côté les dessins de sapin bois ouverts ou fermés. So I had to memorize that entire sentence, and that was a little bit tricky. That one was not crazy hard, but there's some pretty hard ones. And again, it's not like it's no harder than anything else, but it's just when it's like when the sentences are just long enough, there's something about keeping the overall meaning in your head. It's a little bit difficult. And so you're essentially memorizing the words in sequence, les grandes personnes, and so on, instead of the overall idea, and that kind of allows the words to come out of you. And so this is the trick when you're actually learning. What I've discovered is that you have to like kind of cut down the sentences in ways that make sense. So, for example, for this is a huge long sentence, right? And now I split it into two cards, and so I have one card just do this part, et de m'intéresser plutôt à la, etc. And so I memorized that one. But then there's ones that I memorized the whole thing. They were very long, hard to remember, and it made doing the reviews extremely difficult. Um, let's go here. Made the reviews very difficult to memorize the sentences because it's very flowery language, right? It's meant to be creative in structure and syntax and stuff. So sometimes, like there's another one. Well, I won't say it, but there's lots of these sentences that I've been having to memorize. So it's been kind of a learning curve to figure out how to like cut down these sentences into little fragments. And like I said, 6 or 7, maybe 8 words is like just long enough where it's interesting and memorable, but not too long where it's quite a memory burden to actually memorize. And that's the challenge that I've had to figure out because, I'm in the Wild West here. Like this is actual French language. It's scary. And it's not like example sentences in a dictionary, which are intended to be concise and convey the meaning, but I just have to read the sentence. And so, for example, what was the word that I learned recently? Here, j'avais à peine de l'eau à boire pour 8 jours. So I had to learn that sentence, and it's tricky because you have to figure out, well, what does it actually mean? Like, what does à peine mean? Like, peine, like, I've seen that in terms of pain and also as like a sentence from a crime, but I've never seen j'avais à peine. J'avais à peine. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but that means like barely, essentially. Um, so it's tricky because I don't have any translation. I have to kind of figure out the meaning from looking up the meaning of each word and trying to understand the meaning as a whole. So I don't have any kind of comprehensible translation to help me initially to memorize each sentence. So that may be also part of the problem. Um, so this is another example. J'étais bien plus isolé qu'un naufragé sur un radeau au milieu de l'océan. So if you count the words 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, so it's about like 12 or 13 words. So it's just too long. It's just too long of a sentence that I probably should have just cut it down to this maybe as one, and then maybe another sentence. I could just do dot 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 sur un radeau au milieu de l'océan. That would have been better and easier to remember. So you live and you learn, and I'm getting better at it, but that's a challenge. Also, I'm seeing a lot more tenses that I've never seen before. More specifically, a lot of passé simple, which is good because I've seen a little bit of it through my dictionary that I've been using, my frequency dictionary, because some of the examples are from novels, but this is just novel, right? This is just novel language, so there's a lot of passé simple, and a lot of like literary words. Not too literary, I guess, but like transition words and stuff that are used in novels and stuff, which has been very useful. I'm about a quarter of the way through the book right now. I think I'm on chapter five. Yeah, I did chapter four today, finished it, and I'm on to, I think, yeah, I'm into the chapter five chapter with the elephants on the planet. So I'm about a quarter of the way through the book, maybe a little bit less. So I've only been at it for about, I think I'll have be about 2.5 weeks at the end of this week when I finish all the cards. So it's probably going to take me another 6 weeks to do the whole book. It depends if like my current pace of going through the book stays the same or not, but which is not that much time investment, honestly. And it's definitely been different, and I've been learning a lot of cool words. But yeah, so that's my process. So this is the first time I've ever sentenced mine out of actual real French in the real world, instead of just from a dictionary. So it's exciting, and it's like I said, it's like you're actually playing with the real language. This is not training wheels. This is the actual stuff. And once I get through this, I think what I'm going to do is at least do the next 500 words on my frequency dictionary to be up to 1500, and then decide, am I going to go the next 500, or maybe do a different book, perhaps L'étranger, or maybe a bit of Harry Potter, a chapter of that. That could be fun. But definitely, I think there's a huge amount of value in doing the frequency dictionary right now, at least up to 2000. I don't see myself taking it beyond 2000, just because the words will show up so infrequently that I'm not getting much utility out of them, and that I might as well just read things that I like and get it from there, and then I will eventually get the words that I need elsewhere. And then, of course, maybe later on I could do some more words from the frequency dictionary. But that's my current thing. That I'm going to finish the Deep Plants over the next 6 weeks, I would say. Do the next 500 words or whatever's left from those 500 words in the frequency dictionary, and then choose a new project to start with learning vocab from. And then, do that forever, basically, or at least for the next 6 months, because after 6 months, I should have about somewhere between, well, if I did 2,400 to 2,500 words this 6 months, I should have another, like, I should actually have more than that, really, at least stuff that I've been learning passively, because the more words you learn, the easier it is to learn. So let's say I round up to about 5,000 words, which is quite a lot. I should be at B2 at that point. I should be at a CFE, CEFR B2 level of, can read most things, can communicate fairly fluidly, and write about topics that are, most everyday topics. That's my goal, at least. But if I imagine like twice my ability right now, like, I think that's reasonable. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. That's my progress for 6 months, as well as the last month in general. And thank you for watching.